Hi, ladies. My name is Sherlyn, and we are sisters dealing with real world shit. Today's topic is going to be, when is it the right time to talk to your boo about finances without coming off sounding like a gold digger?
One, I don't see it as being a gold digger. Like, we live in America, it's a capitalistic society, so finances are important. And if you have a problem with that, then to me, that's a red flag that you don't want to talk about it. I think you need to start having serious conversations about finances before moving in with someone.
In addition to that, it needs to be mutual. Like if we're talking about his credit, we need to be talking about my credit too. So it doesn't feel like I'm all in your business. It's like it's a collective effort, but definitely talk about it before you move in.
My 18-year-old self all the way up to maybe, 20, when I'm just in college in the dorm room, I didn't really feel the need to tell them what my, my credit score was and vice versa because, just dating is nothing really serious, but now that I'm like 27 almost in my 30s, I definitely feel like, I'm definitely more inclined to at least ask them how they manage their money. If not, like, I don't know about asking them about their credit score. I don't know. Absolutely. But definitely like how they spend and how often they spend. Because, sometimes, like when you're asking your boo, like, hey, how are you doing? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going out to buy this new phone. And you find out he purchases phones like all the time. And he's spending money on this and also complaining about not having no money. Like, that's a red flag. So,
And what do you think, Jocelyn?
I will say in my early 20s, credit score, that's foreign to me. I don't think anyone in their early 20s is going to be looking out for them. Like, oh, what's your credit score? Yeah, right.
I agree.
Jada, you brought up something really interesting because you said, it's not necessarily like the credit score, it's a lifestyle thing. That's so important because like my boyfriend and I like expensive things. I like my Louis, I like my Prada, and he's like very like simple. Like I like Yeezys, but you introduced me to Yeezys, but he doesn't have to have those things. So I definitely think like it's important to talk about the lifestyle that you like to live and make sure that they can be aligned in some kind of way.
And whether or not you can live within your means and still be able to.
It is so true.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually brings us to our next question. Are you willing to date a man that has bad credit?
Girl, yes. Okay. Well, because in your early 20s, not all of us are going to be established, like we're still trying to figure things out. So it's going to be really rare to find someone with good credit and with a good job that early on. So in a sense, I guess we're building together during that time. So it's not realistic to find someone that has better credit or the good credit at that time.
And mom, how long does it take for those things to fall off of your credit if you have bad credit though?
I think about, well, it depends on if you have some medical bills or things like that are on your account that you haven't paid off, then I think it takes between 5 to 7 years to fall off. Now, if you have something on your credit report in which you're slowly paying on that to get it paid down off of your credit report, eventually when you get it paid off, it'll drop off as a bad credit. So that's a good thing. So if you see something out there, you got a cell phone charge or something like that you hadn't paid, then you need to go out there and actually set up something to get the bill paid.
So if you have something on your credit at 22 and 7 years from that time is the age of 29, does that change your mind, Jocelyn? Will you stick around?
Oh gosh, if they're working towards getting that corrected, then yeah. But if they don't even care, then if I don't see the effort, because I'm all big about effort, then I'm not even gonna. Yeah, I would let them go for sure.
It's important to be able to know the individual's FICO score and what they have, and things that they haven't paid in the past, and because it definitely shows you their potential buying power in the future. I mean, if you have a really low credit score, it affects you when you get an apartment, it affects you when you get a house, it affects you when you get a cell phone. I mean, that little 3-digit controls a lot of your life. So as far as me with somebody with bad credit, I don't necessarily say that I wouldn't date somebody that had bad credit, but the thing about it is that I need to be able to get into that relationship, figure out what's wrong with your credit, and try to get it on track.
Okay. I have a question, Pamela. So if someone that that you fall in love with, they say, hey, I'm ready to get married to you, but their credit still isn't quite right, would you marry that person, or would you hold off until after he gets his credit right?
I would, but part of the process of deciding to get married to somebody is that willingness to want to work with that person to get them to where they need to be. Whether it be offering to say, hey, I think we need to go to like a counselor, some kind of debt counselor, so we can get this fixed, but so that we'll be in a better financial position, or just the reassurance to say, hey, I'm here for you, but we do need to get this fixed.
Okay.
Not quite right though. What is that?
Yeah.
Are we talking like that, or are we talking about like okay, or what?
Like
That part like the
not quite in that fair, but just like, okay, you see him working towards it, and you're like, oh, we want to get married, we want a house. All right, in order for us to get this house that we want and not having to pay that high interest rate because of our credit or your credit being too low, maybe we should hold off. A lot of times when people get married, or let me go back to a saying that my mom used to say: love don't pay the bills. Love is, it's nice to be loved, but a part of that relationship is a business. Like I said, in America, it is a capitalistic society. Like, you're going to sign a contract. A marriage license is a contract. So you're marrying that person for better, for worse, in their health and financially. So that's why I was asking, like, hey, when you decide to marry someone, is that going to be a factor that determines whether or not you marry that person at that time anyway?
Jocelyn said something that's very important. She said that what type of credit are you looking for when it comes to this particular individual? And I think if you date somebody and they have fair credit, anywhere from the 669, and a little bit lower than that, in the 6s, then you can work them up to the 700 area. I'm talking about, when you get somebody and they got like a 400 credit score, it's like, what in the world? I don't know what you're going to do. You're never going to be able to get buying power with that. Whoever is the better one about dealing with the finances and the money is the one that should be taking care of the bills.
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm good at, and this is what you're good at. So I take care of this and you just pay me. So everything gets paid on time. We don't have any issues like that. And it works. Like, initially, I think you think, oh, the man's the provider, this, that, and the other. But it's like, when you realize like that is your strength, and it's not that he doesn't have the money, it's just not his strong point. Like, that's a responsibility that I was like, okay, I'll take that on, and you just paid me. We make sure everything's paid on time. And it's still teaching him responsibility, because he still pays the bills. It's just he's paying it to me rather than directly to the leasing office.
But that's what a partnership is about.
Yeah.
A lot of times in a relationship, you could be better at something, so you take the lead on that. And then a lot of times that other person can be better on something, so they take the lead on it. But that is what we call a partnership in a relationship, and working together. And that's critical.
Right. Let me ask you this, ladies. Do you know what an authorized user is?
Yeah, I sure don't.
You sure don't?
I
Tanika,
sure
would you
don't.
like
What
to
is
explain
that?
it?
So essentially, an authorized user is adding someone to one of your credit cards, so then their payments can be associated with you, and as a result their credit card or their credit score gets boosted up because you have good credit, so they get the benefits of that.
Oh, I didn't know
But
that's how that.
it can also go the other way around though. So you want
Yeah.
to make sure
Oh,
that the person that
Oh.
you allow yourself to be an authorized user with, not so let me explain. The person who says, hey, I have an account and I'm going to put you on my card, that person is responsible for the boost up or the decrease of your credit score. So if you decide that you want to be an authorized user on someone's account, make sure that person is a responsible person.
Right.
That's
So
very good to know. Yeah,
mhm.
that's very
That's
good to
that was something
It
that
works.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. It works the same way as if if you have a bank account. Because I know you don't
Ah,
want to add somebody to your bank account, knowing good and
oh
well
yeah.
that they don't have no money to put in there. The next thing you know, they pulling money out of your account for something that
Hmm.
somebody else did.
That is
Which
so right,
which
Pamela.
brings
That is
up
so
another
right.
point. That brings up another point, Pamela. Do you think it's important to have joint accounts or to have separate and joint accounts when you're in a relationship?
I think when you're in a relationship, it's important to have both, one
And why?
separate and one joint. It
Mm-hmm.
may not sound good at the time. Maybe when you're further along and you say, I do to that person, hey, you can get rid of that separate account and go ahead and just join it. But
Mm-hmm.
until you get to that point, no, separate and another joint just in case.
Okay.
Well, my grandmother always said, have your money on the side too.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
you never know what's gonna happen in a relationship. Even when you are married, I
Mm-hmm.
still think you need to have a little bit of money on the side, your stash.
I
Mm-hmm.
call it my rainy day fund.
Your rainy day. Oh, girl, that's right.
Now, Mom, you recently went through a situation with talking about burial arrangements. I know we had that conversation. Do you want
Oh,
to touch on that?
yeah. I found out that it's very important if you are in a relationship in which you guys are living together and you're not married. It is very, very, very important to make sure that one, you talk about burial expenses. Two, you talk about what type of um what will, if they have a will set up, if they want you to be in charge of their burial, that they need to place that in writing by with a
Mm-hmm.
lawyer. So, when they die, that you are the individual that is calling, saying what needs to happen during this funeral process.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you are not a spouse and your significant other dies, your children are the ones that everybody talks to at that point, not that significant spouse, because they were not married. So it's very, very important to know things like this, especially when you're in a situation where you're not married to the individual.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And if you
and
don't
I
have
did have a
children,
question.
go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead. I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say, would that also apply to people or state people who live in states where they've lived together for a really long time and they're considered married?
Yeah, it will. I've seen people that's lived together for 5, 10 years. The person died. They have no authority over saying whether they're cremated or buried or anything, because they don't have a power of attorney, in their hands, stating that, my significant other before he passed said that he wanted me to be in charge of this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very important to talk about stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you ladies would like to add? Chirp,
That
chirp.
sounds stressful.
You know
Like, I
what
know
though?
it's a very important thing to say or even to bring up, but
Mhm.
that sounds like a very stressful thing to even go through and to even
It,
like proceed. with the power of
Mhm.
attorney and stuff like that. That's stressful.
You know what though? That process is actually, it's not stressful. If you do what you're supposed to do, like being responsible and going to get your power of attorneys, really thinking about, okay, once I die, how do I want to make sure that my family is set up? In my case, I have children, so I have to think about them. If something were to happen to me today, I need to make sure that they're good, not just financially, but they know who they're going to. The person that they're going to knows that they're coming to them. We've had the conversations. So it's not like
I mean,
this
yeah,
scramble of
auntie.
like, it's not this scramble of like, oh, no, I'm getting them. No, I'm getting them. It's, you don't want to stress your family out in the last days of them remembering you. You want them to be able to say, okay, it's sad that this person passed away. You're not stressed out about the finances. You're literally just in mourning and celebration of that person's life. When you don't have
Okay.
your stuff together, it can cause turmoil in the family. Like I've seen families literally split and separate because the business was not taken care of.
And if you want them to be responsible in your time of death, then you need to set them up in a way that they will be successful and provide them with a power of attorney.
Can you imagine living with someone? Both of you are paying bills for cars and, for a home, and then that person passes away and you're like, "Oh God, how am I going to live my life? I can't stay in this place by myself. I can't sustain the cars, the whole lifestyle by myself." So that's really why life insurance and power of attorneys are important, to make sure that those that you leave behind are not struggling financially.
Ladies, that was a great discussion. So our next topic will be when to turn off your alpha female and just be a regular person with your boo.